I love the 3DS. It's the system that got me back into Nintendo after over a decade of not owning any of their systems. It didn't just have amazing entries from classic Nintendo franchises, but also tons of great JRPGs. So in this video, I'll be counting down the top 10 best on the system. And to help me out is Emily from Orbalology. And to get this list started, I'll kick it to her. Take it away, Emily.
Hi everyone, this is Emily, aka Overclocked, and I wanted to kickstart this list with a recent game I've been playing that I thought was well deserving on this top 10 list. And that game is Shin Tensei IV. The SMT games are known for their high difficulty, and this game is no exception. In this fourth entry, you are placed in this alternative version of Japan, where you're chosen to become one of the samurai who defend the kingdom against all these invading demons. I found the dark atmosphere and music really complementing the setting, and there's a lot of great dialogue and voice acting and art style throughout this game. It just made a very enriching experience that I'm really excited to dive further into. Depending on the choices you make, there are 3 separate routes that you go into. The combat also takes your traditional turn-based system and really injects a lot of creativity with how you get to recruit demons, as well as fuse them together to become stronger demons to fight for your cause. And there's just so many endless possibilities of how to go about this, so I really enjoyed the freedom and also a little bit of the randomness when it comes to recruiting demons, sort of keeping you on your toes. So if you do decide to pick this game up, I highly suggest you save often and really just play around with all the different options you have at your disposal.
After not having played a Pokemon game since the original Red and Blue, I was excited to dive back into the franchise with X and Y. With it being the first fully 3D entry, I feel like I couldn't have picked a better entry to start back up with. After choosing my starter Froakie, I was excited to see all the new Pokemon I had missed and be in this world all over again. I loved the simple act of battling my way through the game's various routes, exploring every inch of each town, and building out my perfect team. I also loved that the world was inspired by France, just such a beautiful country. I also loved all the new ways you could explore it, like the rollerblades. It was a blast to just zoom through all the different environments. There was also a social aspect of this game for me. When it released, everyone in my office was playing it, so it was really cool to come together every day at lunch and see what teams everyone had played and just play together. The art style also gave me this really cozy and relaxing vibe. It was such a fantastic game to wind down with at the end of a day. The franchise honestly didn't change all that much, but having not played it for over a decade, it was a real treat to experience another Pokemon adventure with X and Y.
The next game I want to share is Rune Factory 4, and while this is available to play on the Switch, I personally found the 3DS version a bit more enjoyable. So the Rune Factory series is known for taking farming simulation infused with some action RPG mechanics, and this was actually my first time playing a game in the farming sim sort of world, so I was a little skeptical at first, but honestly this game is just so much fun with so many different mechanics that you can explore. And the flexibility in this game really just allows you to focus on whichever activities you want to pursue, whether it be farming, crafting, monster taming, or just exploring different dungeons and fighting enemies. And I just felt all the different balance of these mechanics without putting too much pressure on you. Just a very enjoyable experience. And while this game does cycle through different time cycles and seasons, I didn't feel super pressured to get certain things done by a certain time period, and I was just really at leisure to do whatever I wanted to do in the game. Unlike a lot of JRPGs, this doesn't focus too much on the story. It does have this amnesia trope more as a vehicle for why you're present in this world and to give some mystery of activities to do throughout the seasons that cycle through. But Rune Factory 4, I think, excels when it comes to infusing together that relaxing JRPG experience that sometimes we're just in the mood for.
One of the coolest dungeon crawler franchises of all time is Etrian Odyssey. I could have really picked any of the last few releases, but I chose 4 because, well, that was the one that I played. Now, most dungeon crawlers play pretty similarly. You enter a dungeon, explore it in a first-person perspective, get into turn-based combat, try to find the end, and defeat the boss. While Etrian Odyssey IV is more or less the same, what I love most about this series is the unique way you map out the dungeons. On the top screen, you'll see the game itself, but on the bottom, you'll see the dungeon map. As you explore the dungeon, you can draw it out with your stylus, everything from the dungeon walls to treasure, secret passages, and much more. For me, this created a very addictive game loop. I wanted to explore every inch of every dungeon so I could fully map it out. In later entries, they added an auto-mapping feature, but honestly, where's the fun in that? The mapping on top of leveling up, getting money, heading back into town for better equipment, and diving back into the dungeon for more made for a game loop I just never wanted to put down. Etrian Odyssey boils RPGs down to their simplest essence, and there's just something special that really spoke to me with Etrian Odyssey IV.
Next is another game that I've recently been playing, and that is The Alliance Alive. This is another game that lends itself to that classic JRPG feel with the turn-based combat system. For me, what really elevates The Alliance Alive as one of the best JRPG experiences on the 3DS are the characters and story. From the start of this game, they immediately suck you into this really unique world where humans are subservient to these beast folk and daemons. And from there, you meet different groups of various characters who are trying to navigate the current state of the world, either through resistance or out of curiosity, and embark on an epic journey where they try to better the current world circumstances. I think my favorite is definitely the characters. I find a lot of the dialogue just ridiculous and hilarious. The combat and leveling up system is also a very interesting take on this genre. There's a lot of random components that they incorporate to level up your skills or introduce new move sets, and I found myself battling a lot just to kind of see what all the possibilities are for leveling up my characters. The Alliance Alive is a not-to-miss game, especially for those who love storytelling and character-driven narratives in JRPGs.
Level 5 is known for creating beautiful, charming worlds with approachable gameplay. One of their best examples of this is Fantasy Life. It presents itself as a life sim in the vein of Story of Seasons or Rune Factory. While it has elements of those games, this is much more of a traditional RPG. In this game, you choose a life class with the goal of mastering it. You'll end up taking on a few lives at a time as they typically cross over. For example, if you choose to play as a hunter, you probably want to also play as a woodcutter and carpenter. Hunters use bows and carpenters can make better bows, but you'll need to be a woodcutter to get the wood for the crafting. Are you starting to see how all the different life classes intertwine? And because of how the various life classes cross over, you'll find yourself constantly juggling different quests, making for a game that you just never want to put down. The gameplay itself is relatively simple, but the charming presentation really helps carry it. I almost didn't care how simple the gameplay was because I just loved existing in this world. In the end, I'm pretty sure I ended up mastering every life class, with Fantasy Life going down as one of my most played 3DS games of all time.
This next game was one that I played earlier this year, and it's now become one of my favorite 3DS games of all time, and that is Shin Megami Tensei Devil Survivor Overclocked. This is a spin-off in the SMT universe that takes place in modern-day Tokyo, where you and your friends find yourselves trapped inside the city limits, where you find a lot of strange things happening, including demons being summoned and fighting people. As the title suggests, this is a game about survival, so you have to recruit demons to fight on your side so that you can navigate the various areas in Tokyo to understand what's going on and also find a way out. What sets this spin-off apart from the mainline series is that they combine the grid-like strategy RPG with the classic turn-based fighting system. Instead of negotiation tactics to recruit demons on your side, you're instead open to this auction system where you're able to buy various demons and eventually fuse them together to build upon stronger demons, and I just found the whole mechanic very addicting and fun. So I highly recommend Devil Survivor Overclocked to anyone who likes an epic story with various routes. So there's a lot of replayability here, and also has a very unique combat system, infusing the strategy RPG with their traditional turn-based combat system. And together, it just brings a very satisfying experience overall.
I'm going to make a bold claim here and say that Bravely Default played a large part in the renaissance of JRPGs in the 2010s. The PS3 was an absolute wasteland for the genre, but after the surprising success of Bravely Default, more developers were willing to make them again. But what about this game made it so special? I think it's because it brought back a classic design style with some modern twists. It has a classic turn-based combat with a traditional world map, something fans hadn't seen in a long time. But it wasn't just that these features existed, it's that the development team seemed to have a true reverence for classic JRPGs. On top of this, there were a few new twists that have kind of become staples in other modern JRPGs. For one, you could control the encounter rate, whether you wanted to completely turn it off to just run back and forth from town to dungeons, or crank it all the way up super high and grind to your heart's content. This was a great feature. You could also control the battle speed, whether you wanted to really speed it up to just grind through battles, or be more strategic and play at normal speed, you had the ability to control it however you wanted. And maybe my favorite feature, the one that named the game itself, was the Brave and the default system. Essentially, you could store up extra turns to use later and attack multiple times in a row. This ended up carrying to other games like Octopath Traveler. This was a great feature that I just really loved and put a new twist on turn-based combat. Not to mention, it had that classic Final Fantasy job system where you can mix and match abilities to build out your ultimate team. Also, it just had some incredible music, one of the best modern JRPG soundtracks in my opinion. Now admittedly, it does have a pretty terrible ending, but otherwise it's a really fantastic game. Over the years, it's gotten 2 sequels, and there's even rumors of a remaster. That said, it's a game I'll always remember fondly, and definitely one of the best JRPGs the 3DS had to offer.
Alright, so coming in at one of my favorite JRPGs on the 3DS system, we have Radiant Historia, Chronology. In recent years, Radiant Historia has become one of the highly regarded Atlas titles on the 3DS system, and for very good reason. Radiant Historia offers a very unique experience on the 3DS in both the story and the combat. Story-wise, I thought they did a really great job on the time traveling aspects where you're able to travel in the past to change what happens in the future. And so there are multiple different timelines of possible events that could happen to the main characters. So it's your job to play out all the various possibilities and allow these characters to succeed in their mission to save the world. So there's a lot of interesting political intrigue moments, as well as characterization and themes centered around friendship that I really enjoyed. So all that paired with a really unique grid-based combat system that uses push mechanics in order to do sort of these combo attacks just was a very satisfying experience that I highly recommend for anyone to check out. This is really, I think, one of the more well-rounded JRPGs on this list in that it really provides an interesting story as well as a fulfilling combat system.
No question, the best JRPG on the 3DS is Fire Emblem Awakening. There's a lot of reasons, but there's a special one for me personally. This was the game that pushed me to buy a 3DS and what ultimately got me back into Nintendo again. Now, I'm a massive strategy RPG fan, and at the time we didn't have very many quality ones to choose from, but when Fire Emblem Awakening came out, it just blew me away. It had a relatively simple story, but I loved the character interactions between the core cast. I don't want to spoil anything in case you haven't played it, but to say the least, it's really great. Now, Awakening also kind of pulled a page out of Persona's book where you could interact with your team members. This in turn would make them stronger in battle, and you could ultimately marry and even have a child with one of them. I know a lot of games these days use a system like this, but I just love it, and I think it's a cool way to get to know your team. As for the combat, it's awesome. You'll battle across grid-based maps and turn-based combat, with each character having a specific class. Now, to achieve victory, you'll have to use your team's unique skills and the map to your advantage. Series staples like the weapon triangle return that gave you an interesting twist on combat, but you could also pair up with characters to do extra damage or even prevent attacks. And for the first time in the series, it added a casual mode where if a character died, they wouldn't be dead for good, they would come back later, which I think made the game more approachable for more players. All of this comes together to make for an unforgettable strategy RPG experience and the 3DS's best JRPG. Now, I love the 3DS, it's one of my favorite systems of all time, but I also love the Nintendo Switch and its library of JRPGs. Now, to see my top 10 JRPGs list, make sure you click on this video right here. And I want to thank Emily once again for joining me on this video. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to her channel. She does a lot of great collection videos and JRPG videos that you don't want to miss. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.